It says it's now streaming live on Facebook.
All right. So I believe we are ready to go. I'm going to make sure I'm recording. Well, good evening, Doc Holliday. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good, thank you. Welcome to something brand new.
Yes.
Really appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad when we spoke the other day, you invited me on your show.
Yes, I've been following you on social media over time, and I see that you have tons of followers and people. When I tell you, when it's time to get a gun and learn about gun safety, people know the name Doc Holliday, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Matter of fact, Doc Holliday was an actual gunslinger, and he fought or was played detective and played police officer and bounty hunter. Back in the day, he was actually a dentist
Really?
and who contracted tuberculosis, and then he became a gunslinger, drunk, and gambler.
Wait a minute. He had the good life first, and then he went the other way.
Yes, yes. And I guess because of his disease, and he knew he was on his way to die, that's when the transition happened for him going from the good guy to the gunslinger.
That's very very interesting. Thank you
Yes.
for and I know you have lots of history and things you can share. So this show is not called something brand new for nothing, because we definitely are going to learn some things here from Doc Holliday this evening. One of the first things I want to ask you is about your career as a NRA certified firearms instructor. Tell me about your path to that career.
Well, actually, I was in law enforcement back in the early 80s. I was with Miami-Dade County Corrections for about 4 years until I got hurt and had to get out. And I went to juvenile justice, always stayed in that field. And now I work with Department of Children and Families. Here in Broward County, there's ChildNet. And so my brother actually started, he was becoming a firearm instructor, and being cynical or trying to be a little sarcastic with my younger brother, James Holliday. I was like, you don't know nothing about guns. Matter of fact, because I purchased his first gun for him when he was about 17, 18 years old. And that was way back in the early 90s. And so when he actually did his first class, I was like, wow, I was very impressed. And he was like, Darryl, you've been in law enforcement, you've been around guns. This is nothing new to you. And I say, true. So I started thinking of John Paul Getty. I've always been in network marketing, always looking to do things on the side. So I became a firearm instructor, long story short. And ever since I did, I love it because I take this as a plot or a ploy to help people understand gun safety, because many in our community, in the Black, brown community, we have guns lying around. Matter of fact, my father passed in 2017. And when we cleaned up his room, we found an old pistol that I thought he had done away with up under the rug.
Under the rug?
Under the rug up under his bed. And it amazed all us because me growing up in the house, I thought he got rid of it. But that was his way. And that's how a lot of parents do. They try to hide their guns from their children. And I'm a big advocate of teaching children how to utilize firearms, not necessarily so they can go out and shoot people, but learn the safety aspect from it.
Okay. How young should you start with children in terms of gun safety?
Well, it all depends on their maturity level. I've taught as young as 7 years old, all the way up to 17, 18 years old, but it all depends on their maturity level. And the parents have to be the one who pretty much understands, their child. And are they ready to happen, even with the simple, because now you have a lot of Call of Duties, you have Fortnite, you have a lot of shows that dealing with gunplay. And so most of these children, like I did a young lady's son a couple of months ago, and she was amazed that her son knew so much about guns, so much about the bullets and how to utilize them. And she was like, I'm glad, because this was her first time having a firearm in the house. So
Well,
she was
well, wait
very
a
happy.
minute. You said something there. You just lost me. Like, are these shows television shows that you teach?
Some of them are games. games that the parents purchase for them that go on that PS5, PlayStation. Back in the day it was Nintendo for us, but but yeah, and they play these games, and they're sitting for hours, and they're shooting games, army games, sniper games. There was the one, I think it was, I can't remember the name. I can see it in my mindset, and they're teaching violence. Yeah.
So is that a wait? Is there any positive benefit to these games? Because I'm just only seeing the negative as you talk about
Um, I think there are some positive aspects as far as getting the knowledge of firearms. Now, like I said, it's up to the parent how they derived or how they steer their children in what they're seeing, what they're playing, and the true aspect of it. Because, when they're playing these games and they shoot another person, they fall down and they disappear. I tell the parents, you have to explain it does not happen that way. That's not the true way it happens. So you have to constantly, even though you buy these games, or these kids have these games and go to their friend's house, most of the times, if the parents don't allow them in their own house, they go to their cousins, their family members, other people in the neighborhood. And that's same thing with firearms. That's why I'm such an advocate of teaching children how to utilize firearms and what the safety is all about, the safety with me.
Okay. Wow. So as young as 7 is not necessarily too early to start teaching a child about gun safety.
No, because you have other demographics and other ethnic groups or racial groups that also teach their children coming out the womb. I put it up on my Instagram and Facebook page where this guy who's an avid gun person teaching his kid who's in a diaper how to put the gun inside the diaper like a holster, and he's actually pulling it out, racking it, and pulling the trigger just like his father. He's mimicking father, and he can't be no more than 18 months to 2 years old.
What would be the purpose of that, Doc Holliday?
I think for me, if I had a child that young, only for the safety purposes, because I know I have several weapons or several firearms in the house, and I want to be able to have that kid have the knowledge if they encounter either going to their aunt's house or going to a neighbor's house, and if they encounter a firearm, they know what to do. Even I had the child disarming, clearing the weapon that I gave him, to the point to where he was amazed. And just from that alone, just the retention of a child that young, because our critical ages is between that 2 and 5 years old. And that's when they're most impressionable, right. And if you teach them, train them up right, like scripture says, you train up a child the way they should go. When they get old, they will not run, but they'll return back to the knowledge that they had from the get-go.
Makes a lot of sense there. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's very interesting. That's a whole nother divergence of a new topic right there. It's just children and guns.
Yes.
So has this career, like, you've been in this way, how long?
October has been 4 years.
4 years. And in that time frame, has it been personally rewarding for you?
Yes, it has. Just the joy on people's face, especially, I train mostly women. There are some instructors out there that have a various combination of men and women. I do have some men. And matter of fact, I've had husband and wives come out together, and the wives never picked up the gun. Husband has shot before, and wives outshoot their husbands.
What?
Yes.
Why am I not surprised? I know I acted like it, but that's really awesome.
Yes, and it amazes them. It gets the husbands a little upset, that they're wives. But I tell them, I say it comes from the fact that, and I'm not trying to be sexist in any way, but ladies have more of a listening tune, where we as men have that macho and we know what we're doing. You know what I mean? And a woman is, especially if she has a good leader who's leading her, she's willing and apt to follow instructions clearly and can process them better than a lot of men can.
So that's what it is. It's the listening game. Like, women are listening to the instruction and they're getting it right the first time more often.
Yes. And I find that all the time. And even I've been inside of gun ranges where I'm instructing the class, and there are a couple husband and wife team. The wife is actually listening and easing over to my side where I'm with my class. And, the husband's there trying to show her how to utilize the firearm, how to put it on target, but he lost her attention and now it's all on me.
So she's kind of like, wait a minute, honey, Doc Holliday's talking right now.
So, and I find that that is just showing people, helping people. I've always had the heart of a person that always wanted to help. Matter of fact, my wife and I, we were pastors at the time. So we've always had that caring, that heart, and one reason when I first got into the firearms and everything, I had a lot of new age pastors sort of come up against me. How could you, you teaching violence, you teaching shooting. And then I had one pastor, and I always wouldn't mention his name. He's really pushed me over that edge outside of my brother, was Pastor Roy McFadden. He's out of West Palm Beach. And he sat me down one day and he said, Pastor Darryl, let me tell you, he said, you got to remember, God taught the children of Israel how to fight, how to defend themselves. You're just an arm of what God has started way back before, when Moses and Joshua, who was the freedom fighter, because Moses was the deliverer and Joshua was the freedom fighter. So he actually took them and showed them how to defend themselves. And he said, you're doing no more than what God has called you for. Yes, you still preach. Yes, you still encourage and counsel, but maybe this is the avenue that God is utilizing you in this day and time. And from there, I just ran with it.
And I'm finding it hard for someone to say that you're teaching violence, though. Like I see it's just the opposite, teaching gun safety, not and teaching people how to protect themselves in case they are in the situation of being a victim of violence.
Yes.
So I just see all positives. Were you ever able to understand it from that other point of view, like how it could be considered teaching violence? I don't see it.
No, it kind of like blew me when they did tell me that, why are you teaching these kids, or why are you teaching gun violence? Because even Facebook and Instagram at certain points block certain images or whatever, especially when it comes to kids handling firearms, because of the recent things that's been happening in the media, and not trying. And I say, well, if we stop shunning, because that put me in the mind, they did the same thing that my father did all these years by not exposing us to understand the safety part of it. They're actually hindering us from growing, or hindering the children from growing to a point to say, hey, when I see a firearm, this is what I need to do. I need to go ahead and tell an adult that there's a firearm in the room. Matter of fact, I was teaching a class and the young lady had said that she had to get together at her house, and her nephew came over and, packing, I guess, whatever. And he actually went in the bedroom and put his gun on top of the dresser, not thinking, and closed the door, not thinking nobody would go in. A 2-year-old niece of hers went in the room and actually shot herself and died. And so, it crushed me when I found that out, when all he had to do was put the gun up, even in the drawer. I'm not an advocate of putting guns in bedrooms when I teach my classes. I tell them, you unload the firearm and put it on top of the refrigerator or in a kitchen cabinet way up top. That way, I'm not a big advocate of putting guns in bedrooms, because if a kid see you while you out in the other part of the house, they're going to sneak into that bedroom and, probably try to play with the firearm or just see how it is. I know even with my brother, and what prompted me to get him and start taking him, because when I was in corrections, one night I came home from work and I, put my guns on the table and everything, thinking everybody in the house was asleep. When I came in and went to take my shower and came out, he's actually broke down the firearm that I had. And when he was trying to put it back together, it was actually pointed at his face. And at any instant, and being a correction officer, it was a loaded firearm. It was in the holster when I put it on the table, but when I came out, he had done took it apart. So at that point, from way back then, back in the early 80s, late 80s, I was already in the mindset of gun safety.
Right. Taking your gun off when you come home at the end of your workday is not the same as taking your shoes off and
Exactly.
your hat and your tie, right?
Exactly.
You have to
Exactly.
deal with that like immediately, pronto.
Yes. Yes.
One of my first criminal cases as an attorney was a negligent homicide case.
Wow.
It was filed against a 16-year-old who accidentally shot his neighbor, another
Oh,
kid.
wow.
They were playing with the gun, and the gun went off, and he was charged with negligent homicide. So that right there just goes to tell you, like, it's very serious to make sure those weapons are put away,
Yes.
because
Yes. Yes,
they
ma'am.
can get into the wrong hands whether you have good precautionary measures or not. They can end up in the wrong hands, but you don't want to contribute to that, right?
Right. Exactly. You definitely want to contribute to that because, at any time, something like that can just happen where in the instance, I know, and it behooves me, like I spoke earlier, as far as, when you come up on a scene, just coming up on a scene and see somebody who has been shot, what aid are you rendering? I know our gun club, I'm part of the gun club here in South Florida, and we teach stop the bleed. We teach first aid, how to pack wounds. We just had and big training with Triad Medical, which was learning how to survive after the gunfight. What do you do then? A couple of weeks ago, I know everybody know about the pastor that got shot down in Miami, and instead of everybody trying to render aid, they pulled out their cell phones and started recording him. And you can clearly hear on the cell phone, one guy say, I got 500. And so people trying to figure out what was 500. He was saying he was Facebook Live and he got 500 views of this man dying in the street. Nobody rendered aid. Even the security guards that were there had their weapons out drawn, I guess, looking for whatever. But this guy's clearly trying to get up and nobody's rendering aid to him. And it was sad because you actually watched him, pass right there on Facebook Live.
That's awful. Now, is your gun club, is it just for the members of your class, or how does that work?
No, actually, they're vetted through our president and vice president and of sales, not sales, president and vice president of the club itself. And what they do, they actually come together, and you have to be just like any other club, any other membership. You get vetted and see what your knowledge are of firearms. How can we help you? And because they're all about safety as well.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really good, and I'm glad you guys are teaching things like how safety after someone has been shot, and
Yes.
thinking about that horrible situation of people videoing a tragedy instead of trying to help someone.
Yes, ma'am.
Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can you
And
give us
it was
the
just it
gist?
was just horrible.
Yeah, that
It
is
was
very
horrible.
horrible. What should have been done in that case? Maybe one needs to be trained. Maybe it's not common sense how to help somebody. What should
That's true.
have happened in that case?
That's true. And I now am a big promoter in my classes. I talk about different things like tourniquets. You can purchase this tourniquet here. This is one. It's a decent one, and it is the Raycon. Okay, they
Okay.
have the cat tourniquet out there, and they have a lot of cheap knockoffs from China. This is one of the good ones here. And then also I tell people, I say you could get your decent first aid kit. Okay. And this is 200 pieces. I know my daughter, one day she said, Dad, you order the weirdest things from Amazon. She said, what do you need to have a 200-piece first aid kit? And after I explained it to her, she was like, wow, I never thought about that. And back in the early days, I know my mom and them having a car dealerships used to have a little first aid kit along with your tire iron in the back and your spare tire.
I
Now
remember.
now they don't, but I employ people to get a first aid kit, even
What?
for yourself. You
Okay.
might need it for yourself,
But
And
what's the 200 pieces? Was that like 200 band-aids or?
no, they have all different type of things in here. I mean, I'm gonna open it up and just share. Now I've added to it, so it's more than 200. Like I have, of course, like I said, I have my tourniquet in here. I
Okay.
have other saline, saline for cleansing.
Okay.
And then it has different types of scissors, gauze. I mean, they have everything in here that you can, and even they have a pamphlet or booklet, and then this opens up. I mean, it's just a plethora of different things that you can use when it comes to first aid. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That is nice to have everybody. And what is that about? What, $30?
Yeah, this one here I purchased for about $39. They have another one that have the chest, the IFAC, which is the infantry type that has the chest compressions. If you need, say, a person gets shot in the open body, and a lot of times the air is seeping out. So they have, you put chest compressions, a shield that covers that wound in the chest area and everything. And these are the limbs, you know, for to help the limbs so you won't lose a limb or possibly lose a limb at the time or bleed out, because most people don't die from the actual gunshot wound. I mean, they die from the gunshot wound, but they die because nobody knew how to stop the bleed. You know, back in February of this year, 2020, down in Homestead, there was a case where 3 kids was at one child's house and he was playing with a gun. And I tell people bullets are made to go through walls. So if they're made to go through walls, they'll definitely go through people. Okay. And there was three friends playing with a gun down in Homestead, and one kid hit the trigger. Pow! It hit one kid, went through him, and hit the other kid. Both of them died.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and I believe basically, I'm not sure, but I would say they bled out. You know, and so I'm a big advocate of pushing. You know, hey, get you some first aid kits, get something. Take your children to first CPR classes. You know, a lot of the cities and counties are doing them for free. Matter of fact, another firearm instructor and I are thinking about starting a Stop the Bleed course. He's already an instructor for that particular course, and I'm going to get certified in that as well. So
that's the Red Cross?
He does his, I think his was through the medical, I forgot what it is, but it may be the Red Cross.
Okay.
That he got his certification through.
All right, that's very good information. Thanks for sharing that. So that minister who was killed in Miami, if you had been there, Doc Holliday, what would you have done to try to help that man in that situation?
Well, first thing, I would have tried to calm him down because he was struggling trying to get up. He was in pain. He was crying out. And that's the first thing. A lot of times, just to be a comfort to a person in that situation. Of course, you have to look for safety. Of course, you have to make sure that you're safe first, because you're number one, because you are the first responder. But if the first responder get taken out, who's going to help the other person? So you have to worry about yourself first. But after you triage the situation and figured, okay, now it's time for me to help him, because at that time the shooter was gone. You know, that I don't know what the circumstances were. But however, you know, then I would have went over and tried to calm him down, first of all, because he kept trying to get up, which exerting his heart, pumping more blood. And you could see the actual blood running down his shirt because he got shot in the shoulder area. So then I probably would have got the first aid kit and try to do some wound packing or something of that nature.
To keep him from bleeding out.
Keep him from bleeding out, exactly.
Oh, so that is so sad. And thank goodness for people like you. Thank goodness. I appreciate you even talking about that, because we're all sitting here learning some life lessons out of things like that.
Right.
You never know when you might be in a position to help someone, or someone might have to help you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if someone wants to obtain their gun license in the state of Florida, what do they need to do?
Well, first of all, in order to get a gun license, you have to have a certified firearm instructor to instruct you, because you have to get a certificate. And the certificate itself is what the state is looking for, to say that you took a class, a competent class from a competent instructor. That's one thing that I stress with a lot of people. You have some instructors out there now, because of the pandemic, they're out there just to get the money. Okay. Matter of fact, last week I posted on my Instagram page where this guy and a woman they're still looking for, but this guy actually wrote over 100 certificates using another instructor's license number.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Making money off of somebody else's license?
Yes. And I hope it wasn't mine. I haven't gotten a call from the department yet, so I'm not sure, but it could have been any one of the instructors that we know. And he was actually making money and taking people's money from doing that. So I tell people, in order, first you have to vet. You have to talk to your instructor. There are a lot of police officers now that I've encountered in the last 3 weeks that now have turned over to become firearm instructors. And just because you're a police officer don't necessarily mean you will make a great firearm instructor.
Okay.
You know, because if you have it all depends on the mindset. Yes, anybody can go out there and shoot. Yes, there's situations that you could get into, because I was, I have a story for everything. I'm a preacher, so. So, and that was a
You have
guy
a story there for everything.
just became a firearm instructor. He was with one of the police departments, local police departments here, and the way he was teaching, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know, because he had his son in there, and I was like, I had to be careful because I didn't like how he was doing it. And like I said, he worked with one of the police departments here. And he said, I just became a firearm instructor 3 weeks ago. I just got certified. Well, if you haven't really, I tell people, shadow an instructor that has been around. If you're going to get your firearms, and I tell people, I say, question me, because I definitely want you to know what is my level of expertise, how long I've been doing this. Have I out of my whole time, I must have did in the last 4 years at least contribute to 400 to 500 licensures, giving out since for the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And I tell people I only had one complaint. And that was only because the person didn't know what he needed to do next, and he felt that I wasn't giving him any help. But I rectified that. So you have to talk. You have to get the firearm training. You have to get your certificate. Then once you get your certificate, you go apply with the state of Florida, the Department of Agriculture. And then once you apply with that, they'll go through the background screening. They'll make sure that you're on the up and up, legit. Your backgrounds come back. Then you go ahead and they will issue you a license.
Okay. And what prevents one from getting a gun license in their background check?
Definitely domestic violence or any kind of criminal activity that dealt with firearms or some type of hardcore violent crime. That definitely is a no-no. Then also the Attorney General for President Trump, he came in when they made marijuana legal. He came back and said everybody that has the marijuana card cannot get a firearm, much less a firearm license. And that's on the application itself. Do you have any violent history? Have you ever been charged or convicted of any domestic violence? Have you ever been involved or engaged in a violent crime? Do you hold or use illegal or legal marijuana? And once you answer yes or answer no, depending on those answers, they will either grant you or they could deny you.
So when somebody legally uses marijuana, do you see that they're getting denied, or do you see that it just depends?
It depends. I have one person that got his license, and once he went to renew it and he had to answer that question, then boom, they denied him. They did deny him because he got the marijuana card. And once he got the marijuana card, they did deny him.
What do you think is going to be the trend on that moving forward? Do you think it's going to stay like that, or do you think people are frustrated with that type of law and there may be some changes in the future? What do you anticipate?
I'm not sure, because I know with this new administration that come in is very much for gun control in a lot of instances. And a lot of us in the gun community are not worried, but we're very concerned on their views of guns and who should have them, who should not have them. Because myself, I would rather have my guns and then come home and get abused or get robbed by somebody, a criminal element that have a gun, but have no training, has nothing. And here I am, I can't even defend myself and my family. And that's a big concern to me, and they talking about, okay, guns kill people. Well, we know guns don't kill people. It's the people in the mindset behind them. But however, if I can't defend myself, what I'm to use, you know, what will I be able to use to defend myself?
Right. And if it's a medical issue, that kind of complicates it because you're saying I'm being penalized because of something medical and how I choose to treat myself for the
Right.
medical issue. And then on the other hand, there's the issue of what about being under the influence? So that can
Because
be
I know over in California, when they first made it legal, they were saying that you had to not operate a vehicle while smoking illegal marijuana, you know. And I know they brought that into play as well, because it talked about how it fogs your mind, how it makes you cloudy, your judgment slower. And same thing with firearms. You know, I don't encourage drinking. I don't encourage smoking, any type of marijuana or anything of that nature when dealing with firearms, because you lose your consciousness, or you lose that sense of consciousness of being safe.
right. Yeah, you're definitely not as sharp. And with the gun, you don't have room for any mistakes, I would say.
Right, exactly.
Um, so what are some of the common mistakes or assumptions that you find that students make when they're in your classroom?
Um, my biggest pet peeve is putting their finger on the trigger. I know I videotape a lot of my classes, and what I do in videotaping, that's a way of myself. Because if any one of my students, and I tell them the reason why I videotape, because if they go out and involve in a shooting or in an incident where they had to defend themselves, there are going to be several people in court, including me, you know, because I was the one who issued that certificate to say that, hey, they're okay, they can go ahead and apply for the license. So my biggest pet peeve is people putting their finger on the trigger. You know, I had one group of people that I did train. It was a group of Chinese restaurant. They wanted to have their gun, and their whole mindset was, if somebody come in here, they rob me, I can shoot them. I'm like, no, you know, it has to be certain circumstances. I said they could come here and bust the windows, tear up the chairs. You cannot take out your firearm and shoot them. So one of the guys was very anxious. Every time he picked up the fake gun, he always put, because I use prosthetic guns in a lot of my trainings, he picked up the fake gun and kept putting his finger on the trigger. And I'm like, no, you know, because that no is all across every language. No, you know. And we got to the gun range and we used live rounds, and I put the live round in. And as soon as he picked it up, he put his finger on the trigger and it went off. Yes. And the way he was pointing wasn't, because I always say you always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, downrange. But when he picked it up, like they see on TV, everybody want to pick it up like gangster. And when he pulled the trigger, it hit the wall. And I say, what if somebody would have been standing on it, or myself, as large as I am, would have been standing, it probably would have grazed me. And I actually kicked him out at that point. Wow. And told him, I will not train you. I refuse to, you know, because of what he did and how anxious he was, and how every time he turned around, when he grabbed it, he wanted to put his finger in the trigger. So that's a big pet peeve of mine. So
I just learned something, that when you grab a gun, the first thing you're not supposed to do is put your finger on the trigger.
Right.
So where are you supposed to hold the gun? Because isn't that how you hold the gun?
No.
The trigger? No. Okay.
Man, I wish I had my props up here. And actually, how you hold a gun when you first pull it out, because guns are in holsters. So that holster is just like this, covering that trigger. So when you grab the gun, you actually put your hand here. When you pull it out, your finger should be straight. So if this was the gun, that's how you would do it. It's called trigger discipline, or finger discipline, or indexing your finger. Then when you go to shoot, then you put your finger in.
Okay.
Okay. But every time, anytime on my videos or whatever, I tell people, do not put your finger in the trigger until you're ready to shoot. That's one of the universal gun safety laws, or gun safety rules. Do not put your finger in the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So when you pull it out the holster, your finger should look like this, and it turns like this.
Wow. And they got that guy kicked out your class.
Yes. Yes.
Don't play around with Doc Holliday. You better follow those rules.
And over the years, I had to actually not issue certificates to 4 people, you know, Two of them came back. They worked on themselves and got it right. One lady, she was just a little giddy, and she was an older lady, but I think she really didn't take the seriousness of it.
Okay.
And when she started shooting, she was so nervous until she was just jumping all over the place. And, consciously, I could not give her the certificate. And I told her, what I'll do, calm down, come back. We'll come on a one-on-one session when I don't have a class, just you and I, and we'll work it out. And she did, and she did quite well.
That's nice. I can appreciate an instructor like you, because not everybody works, I guess, in a classroom setting very well, and you did the one-on-one with her,
right?
And got her through it. That's awesome. That's really good. So, what are the best guns for personal protection?
Now, there are several different guns out there, from the high end, from the low end of $200, all the way up to $1,000, $3,000, $4,000. Myself, I have preference, and they are my preference. My preference is I do not like Glocks, especially for first-time shooters. One, because they don't have a safety. Now, you have people out there that say Glocks are the best thing. I remember when I was in the corrections back in the 80s, City of Miami Police Department was the first police department to get Glocks in the South Florida area. And at that time, and I tell people the story, Mr. Glock himself was not a shooter, but he had this idea of trying to match power for power, because you had the new cartels, you had the drug guys coming in, you had the people, so they carry Uzis and machine guns, which back in the day, we had the 5 and 6 shooter Smith & Wesson handguns. And so he came up with this idea to start supplying law enforcement. If you notice, law enforcement is the only department in these United States that carry Glocks. And some people say they are good running guns. I never really shot a Glock. I had the opportunity to shoot one time, and it was smooth. But then you have different people, different views. As far as ladies, what I'm finding out now, I'm definitely a Smith & Wesson. I should get a plug for that. But I'm definitely a Smith & Wesson person. But even myself, I went to the Walther PPS, and now I carry CZ as my carry weapon. And it all depends on the trigger, the take up, the pull. Some people put out a list on my Instagram page of the 2019, 2020, 10 firearms that was mostly purchased by women. And the first one is the 9mm EZ from Smith & Wesson. Okay. Then they had the Glock 43. Then they had the 6-hour, the new P365 was on there. And then a couple of others. Then they have the Taurus G3C. And that's one that I've been recommending to ladies because it has a safety on it. The only bad thing about that, the take up, and a lot of people say, what do you mean by take up? Well, the take up of it when you pull the trigger is a long take up, but however, it does give you that expansion of double tapping at the same time, which can be very beneficial, especially if somebody's attacking you. So yes, and there are other different firearms that I recommend out there. So, but like I said, right now my preference is the CZ.
So number one, the CZ is number one, and that's for ladies as well.
Well, the CZ is mostly for there's a big. Then you have the H&K VPK, which I know a young lady, a friend of mine, she carries that, the VP9. But a lot of them go after the SIG, and the SIG is on the high end. It's just whatever could fit your budget. One thing I do not like is I have a lot of ladies come in with 40s, that's the caliber, 40mm, 9mm, or 45. And I asked them, I said, why did you purchase this 40 cal? My husband or my boyfriend said I should get this. But they never shot the gun. They never held the gun. They never had an opportunity to chamber around, and they get this gun. And when they first shoot it, that's in their firearms career. Yes. And when I take my students, and now more people, because people used to get on me about that, I train with 22. I start everybody out with a 22, which is a smaller round, opposed to the 9mm. And then we work our way up because most people are afraid or anticipate the bang theory. And that's what actually scares them more than actually shooting the gun.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
So
So I
the
recommend starting out.
So you with the smaller gun, right?
Yes.
That's a little short barrel.
Well,
Or...
no, it depends, because my 22 is like a full size firearm, but the bullet itself, and I think I have a, like, this is a 9mm round. See, I have them all over my house.
Okay.
See how large that is?
Big one,
And
yeah.
a 22 round is half this size.
Okay, I've seen a 22. It's real tiny. I mean, really small.
Yes, it's really small.
Yeah.
And so, and that does not have a lot of recoil when they do go ahead and shoot. That doesn't have a lot of recoil. So at that point, they'll be able and confident, because all 22s are for is confidence builders. And you want to build that confidence before you actually put a round here or a larger round in their hand to actually shoot.
Okay.
So
you start with that, and then the 9mm will be the next level, possibly.
yes, 9mm, and then if some have the 40 or the 45, I let them bring their firearm to the range as well, and that way they can shoot it or learn how to shoot. So
awesome. What's the number one thing women are intimidated by when it comes to guns?
A lot of them are afraid because, like I said, in our background, we was always told, don't mess with guns, don't touch guns. A lot of women that I find are so scared, like I say, they're scared of the bang factor more than anything. I had one lady to literally start peeing on herself when it was her time to shoot.
Oh.
And she was crying and peeing at the same time. And she was embarrassed, but she got up there and started shooting, and she loved it. I was like, but and I think that's what it is. A lot of them are afraid of the bang. They're intimidated by a firearm because of what they see on TV.
Okay.
Because how all the gangster movies and everything shows how, even from racking or chambering around inside when it comes to a semi-automatic. You have certain people how they do it, and I tell them, no, that's wrong. Whatever you learn from TV, I'm finna brainwash you now, wipe all that, take it out. We're gonna do it the right way. And
absolutely.
So, yes.
That's awesome. So those guns that you mentioned for women, are those all semi-automatic?
Yes. Now, I do have a couple of people that like revolvers or have shot revolvers in their past. Revolver is a very reliable gun, but the only thing is you may get 5 shots to 6 shots. The most I've seen is 8 shots in a particular revolver. But however, if somebody's hyped up on drugs, because I've seen some police shootings. I'm a big YouTuber, and I'm always going on looking for information and looking for new content in order to share with my classes. There was a police officer that unloaded 2 magazines in this particular guy, and he was still coming at the police officer.
Huh?
And yes, because he was hyped up on some type of drug, and the police officer, put rounds in him, dropped the magazine, reloaded, and put rounds in him again before this guy finally dropped. So yes, depending. And so unless you are a marksman shooter, because I always tell people when you're shooting your firearm, there's 2 things you need to hit, and I call them switches and hoses. And everybody say, what are switches and hoses? Well, just like a white light switch, if I was to turn the light switch off, the power goes out. So the switches are your brain,
okay, yeah,
and your heart. You hit any one of those 2, lights out. Right. But however, the other parts are the hoses, are your veins and your arteries. Just like you take a water hose, you plug it up, you stab it and run water through it, it spews out, and that's what gets the bleeding out. So, and most people, when they're shooting, I found a lot of men as well as ladies, mostly ladies, close their eyes when they're shooting.
Really?
Yeah, because they're afraid of, like I said, the anticipation of the bang factor. So
we have to get over that. Look, we have to get over that bang, 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 bang. Right?
Yes.
So once women get over the bang, they're good.
They're good. They're pretty much good. It's just a point of lining the sights up with your target, get sight alignment, sight picture, and actually putting rounds on target the appropriate way.
Are there some women who are pretty good marksmen, you know, like they give men a run for their money, so to speak, like they're competitive?
Yes,
Women
there are a lot of here in the South Florida. I've met a lot of firearms instructors that are females, and I know I have my sister Stephanie Marie. She just moved to Texas. She's on point. Then I have one of the ladies in our gun club, Danielle. She's on point. I have Lou Tactical, Lucinda from Homestead. Then you have so many young ladies now are becoming firearms instructors that it really challenge us as men to stay on our game. You know what I mean? Because these ladies are pretty much, they stay in the range. I know when I do my classes, I recommend people for the first 6 months of leaving my class after they get their firearm to go to the gun range at least 3 to 4 times a month.
Okay,
Minimum.
I'm going to say a week.
No, no, I'm in there about that much, but I don't even shoot when I'm there because I'm instructing. But I tell people, get to the gun range. That's the biggest thing. I've had people that have took classes with me and come back and say, especially now since the pandemic and everybody's in pretty much panic mode,
Yeah.
Mr. Holliday, I need to go to the range. I said, well, when the last time you went to the range? Last time you and I went.
Oh.
And that was like 2-3 years ago.
That was from class.
Yes. Yes.
So, in other words, it does you no good to have a gun if you're not practicing target shooting.
Right, exactly. Because you have to develop that muscle memory. Just like in class, in order for us to learn as we was growing up, repetition is key.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more it becomes ingrained in you where it comes naturally. So, and I tell people, that's how you're going to be able to overcome those fears, overcome those challenges that you might have. And now I even started a class with several ladies to where we actually learn how to draw from the holster, because a lot of people walking around with their concealed weapons, either in their purse or on their person, and they can't draw the weapon. And
Holliday, thank you for this topic, because you know women carry purses. And we have everything in our purses.
Yes.
And you're like me. I love hobo bags. Hobo bags, you just take everything you own but the kitchen sink and you just drop it inside the purse and keep moving, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, if I put that gun in there, it's going to the bottom.
Exactly.
So how do you know, that could be dangerous. So let's talk about that.
Well, I know at one point, and I know I'm gonna have my sisters that's on here gonna crucify me for this, but I'm not a big advocate of women carrying guns and purses. If you have to, hey, by all means, as long as you're able to defend yourself. Now, your biggest learning or mastering the skill is not coming from a gun range, which a lot of people think it is. You go to the gun range and bang, 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 bang. No. Your biggest learning power is in your own home, in the safety of your own home. And it's called dry fire or draw fire. You know, how to retrieve that gun out safely without putting your finger on the trigger. Okay. How to take that gun out of the purse, reaching in, knowing exactly where it is. And they do have these purses. And my business partner, Renee Hill of R&D Self-Defense, she does have purses where they have like different compartments that a woman can know how to safely retrieve her firearm. Instead of like the hobo bag you have where you just drop everything in, there might be a little compartment on the side where she can reach in and pull her firearm out. And so those are different. And I tell people, if you're going to carry a firearm, look to get in one of these purses. You know, the cost factor is $100 or more, but that's worth paying that money, and you're accidentally going to retrieve your gun and hit that trigger and shoot yourself or shoot somebody you didn't intend to shoot, you know. So, and I say, yes, it might cost. I know I have a friend of mine and I love him, and he buy all these expensive firearms. And next thing I know, he bought a $17 holster. And I'm like, are you serious? You just spent $800 on this particular firearm, and we call them well, I ain't gonna say the name, but you know, you bought this $17 holster. Are you serious? You got an $800 gun for the 17, and there's like on YouTube, like I said, I'm a big YouTuber. There's a guy that's pulling his gun out of his holster, and before he get it out, the gun goes off and shoot him in the hip, and that bullet traveled through his leg and came out at his ankle. Yes, because of the holster was a.
Wait, the holster can cause you to shoot yourself? What
Because a lot of holsters, if they're worn or if they're I'm gonna say cheap material, they can fold in, and when you go to grab your gun and try to pull it out, the holster can snag the trigger and actually make it go off. Yes, yes.
So, Doc, does that mean that most guns really should have safeties on them, or are you a proponent of guns without safety as well?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a twofold with me. My first firearm, after years later, my first firearm was a Smith & Wesson. I had the shield, and it has a safety. Mm-hmm. And me as an instructor, knowing that I should be careful with the firearm and everything, I had a negligent shooting. And it's not an accidental. A lot of people say it was an accidental shooting, but no, it was a negligent shooting, because here I am, an instructor, knowing I should not have did certain things, but I did it anyway. And the firearm went off because I was negligent. Now, for ladies, every firearm I carry as my personal firearm don't have safeties. No, I started out with that first one, and I learned my lesson from that first one. So now every firearm I had since then, for me, that I personally walk around with, does not have safeties. Go ahead, because I see it.
Confused. Yeah, I got some confusion here, because the gun went off. The gun that went off had a safety on it.
Yes. But and you asked me how did it go off?
But the negligence was because it went off because the safety was off when it should have been on.
And I pulled the trigger.
And you pulled the trigger.
Yes, but if that safety would have been on, I would not have been able to squeeze that trigger. And like I said, myself, I'm gonna have to call you back. Myself, I was negligent with that, and where I actually was squeezing the trigger, and I'm looking at it, safety on, safety off, because some safeties you flip up, they're on. Some safeties you flip down, they're off. And I just purchased this firearm, and I'm trying to get familiar, like I say, get familiar with the gun itself, and somehow got distracted with a call. And then when I went back to actually, working with it to familiarize myself, I couldn't remember. Instead of me unloading the gun, I just simply pulled it over and squeezed the trigger, and it went off. And from that point on, I started. Now, it took me some time, because I keep one, most people, street term, they keep one in the head, but I keep one in the chamber. It took me at least 4 months to feel comfortable enough to have, one, a gun without a safety, and then two, one bullet inside the chamber while I'm walking around. And I had to go through several different holsters to make sure I felt one that was comfortable, because I'm a big guy. Make sure I had one that felt good. Also, what I do wear, sometimes I wear my belly band,
Belly band.
So I wear a belly band.
Okay.
And the belly band itself has a compartment where you put your gun in, okay? And it has a strap where you strap up, okay? And it goes around the waist. And it's like one of those trainers that the ladies wear that you see all the time. Yeah. And so if I'm out wearing shorts or whatever, my gun may be too heavy to actually put it in the holster, so I wear one of these. So you have to be careful, how you retrieve in this as well, And like I say, I started teaching ladies how to actually retrieve their firearms from their holsters or their belly bands, because a lot of ladies, when they wear jeans or whatever, they do not wear belts. So they can't have the conventional or the universal holsters. So I encourage them to get the belly band.
So can ladies still wear tight jeans and belly bands?
Yes. Okay. It's made perfect for that. It's made perfect for that.
So that is really, really good. So you answered the question how often one should go to the range after they've been to training, and that's about 3 to 4 times a month, you said.
Yes, 3 to 4 times a month.
Okay.
On average.
And what's the best way? How do you teach people about how to clean a gun?
Okay, in my classes, I do charge for cleaning, but I show them first. I always tell people the best university that you can go to is free, YouTube. So you go on YouTube, find out first how to break down your gun, how to clear it. And clearing it means take the bullet out the chamber, take the magazine out. Make sure when you are cleaning your gun, because there have been several different accidents where people have been cleaning guns and accidentally shot their loved one or shot themselves. And because they were negligent. Again, it wasn't an accident, it was negligent. So I tell people, when you are cleaning your firearm, you take your bullets and that magazine and put it in another room completely, okay, away from the firearm that you're utilizing. Then you would actually take the firearm and break it down. And there are different, I like to use what is called gun scrubber. It's just a spray. I spray real good to loosen up everything. And then I got a little pick that I clean out the crevices. And I use Q-tips and a toothbrush. And then I use COP oil, which is for cleaning, lubricating, and protection, oil at the end. Firearms, handguns, don't need a lot of oil, because first thing it does when you're shooting, all that lint, all that dirt, all that lead from the rounds that you're shooting gets stuck, and that can actually cause your gun to malfunction. It can actually cause your gun to malfunction. So you don't use a whole lot of oil. You don't over oil it. I know with rifles, rifles like a lot of oil to help recycle the rounds because of the velocity that they need to eject, send out the bullets. But with your handguns, you break it down completely, and you don't put water and stuff like that, because a lot of that can rust out your gun. And alcohol, you don't use that kind of stuff. But they have gun actually lubrication, as well as I like gun scrubber, and spray it down real good.
If you buy a gun, you should probably buy a gun cleaning kit too.
Actually, most people do buy the gun cleaning kit, but I feel that's a waste of money. Only because you can use everything in your house to utilize outside of the gun scrubber and the oil to actually clean the gun. You get an old toothbrush, you get a brass toothbrush, or either the felt toothbrushes, and use it to clean the gun. Use Q-tips, So you have these type of things that you can utilize right in the house. Yes, they sell you, this kit that I've used back from my days in corrections, and it's the hops. A lot of people say hops gun oil is the best. I don't know. I haven't used hops since 1980. What I use, I love the CLP, because I love the way the texture is on my firearm when it's actually chambering rounds. Many people have their different preferences when it comes to different oils, but I know what works for me and my firearms. So
it's kind of like trial and error a little bit.
Yes, yes, it is.
So how often do you have to clean your gun?
Again, that's another personal preference. My training weapons, I don't clean that often, only because I want malfunctions when I'm with a student. And that would teach them, if they get a malfunction, they get a double feed. How would you rack and tap the slide to get that malfunction out? Or if the gun is dirty and it won't cycle the rounds, what should you do? How do you break your gun down and clean it? So I do that with my students as well, because if they have their own gun. Now, my personal firearms, if I put 50 to 100 rounds through it, then I will clean it.
Every time you shoot that gun 50 to 100 times, right?
Right, 52, and I can shoot 100 times in one session. Because a box of bullets come 50 rounds to a box of bullets for the target rounds, and you can actually be within 30 minutes you depleted 100 to 200 rounds.
So in your training, if somebody's going to training, they could deplete 100 to 200 rounds in a training?
Yes.
In one training?
In one training, yes.
Maybe after every time you go to gun range?
Yes. Yes. So, and I tell people, when you do go home, go on YouTube, find your particular gun, because they have all of it on YouTube, and they actually teach you how to break down your gun. and then you go ahead and clean it the way you need to clean it.
This has been such a great lesson. Thank you, Doc Holliday. This is fantastic. Great information to share and repurpose with our community, and people can share over and over again.
Yes, ma'am.
If folks want to get their young folks acquainted with guns the proper way, to respect and use guns properly, can they contact you for things like that?
Yes, they can. Matter of fact, they can contact me on Instagram at Doc Holliday 69. That's DOCHOLLIDAY with the number 69 behind it.
Okay.
If they want to do Facebook, I have both of my Facebook pages. I got Darryl J. Holliday, as well as I have Doc Holliday Firearms Enterprises and Security and Self-Defense. Then I have also my personal website or my telephone number, and also my service is what I've started doing. When I first started doing firearms is mobile come into the house. And a lot of people are like, how do you go to somebody's house and teach them how to shoot? Well, I have a training factor for that, because the state says we actually have to see them shoot at least one time. And they're like, but if you're in the house, how can you do it? I say, well, just hire me and I'll show you how.
Sounds interesting, but safe, I guess.
But safe, yes. Always safe. Always safe.
Always safe. That's really good too. So I'm gonna put that phone number in the comments. What's your phone number?
It's 954-892-3969. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so let me see if there's any particular comments here before we get to the top of the hour. And I think the other thing, so where do I go on Facebook? Oh, I see it now. If you have any questions. There's lots of comments here. You know lots of people, don't you, Doc Holliday?
Huh?
I said, lots of people. There's a lot of comments here. So I don't see any questions, but there are some really nice comments that people are watching and getting information. Doc Holliday, that phone number again is 954-892-3969 if someone wants to reach you about training, gun training.
Gun training, yes.
All right. And that's very awesome. And then if you could just make one last appeal to women and say something to women, because I think we're a special category of folks that need safety and protection. And whatever you might want to say to a class of women, I appreciate it. I've been a victim of a violent crime since I've lived here in South Florida. And we all want to be safe. We never want to run into. So what else can you say to women?
I think what I would tell, and like I tell most of my classes, as women, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to protect yourself. So you're coming to learn, even though somebody else might shun you, somebody else might tell you don't need a gun. I beg to differ, especially in the times that we're living in, only for self-protection, only for self-protection. So I'm like, contact a firearm instructor if it's not myself, somebody else that's competent, that can teach you the proper way. And if you feel uneasy, because it was an incident last week where a young lady lost her life out in California because the firearm instructor, I felt from viewing the video, was very incompetent, how he turned the firearm. I put it on my Instagram page and my Facebook page, and how he actually, it was to the average person, that would have been an accidental shooting, but by him being a firearm instructor, if he was a firearm instructor, he should have been charged with her death, manslaughter at least. Yes, she died. And the first rule of gun safety is never point the gun at nothing you want to destroy or kill. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. And I guess he must have had a jam in the gun, and he turned it towards himself. He shot himself in the arm and actually shot her in the belly, and she died from it, which is, and she was going, I don't know, if he was a firearm instructor, I don't know if he was. It's sad. It's sad because a lot of people die. And I tell women, learn, just don't go, because I see so many women go to the gun range because it's a high, it's a thrill, and they go and rack off bullets. That's okay. But you also have to keep the safety factor. That's my biggest pet peeve. Keep that safety factor in whatever you do with a firearm, in the home, in on when you go out everyday life. You have to practice. You have to maintain that level of confidence and competency when it comes to your firearm. And if you don't have that, then it's all for naught anyway. You might as well don't even have one. Yeah, and I tell people, firearms is not for everybody. It's not. That's truth being told. Firearms is not for everyone. But however, those that are competent enough or are confident enough to have one, get training. Find a firearm instructor. Just don't find Joe Blow down the street or your boyfriend or your husband say, I can take you shooting. No, find somebody that you'll be able to train with that will teach you the proper. If you feel uncomfortable, ask questions. There are plenty every time you go to the gun range, there's plenty of firearm instructors around there. I tell people, hey, go talk to that guy about me. They'll tell you, if I'm good, if I'm not good. I have no fear because I know what I've done over the years. My brother, same way. I tell people, they say, I met your brother and, he's a firearm instructor. Is he as good as you? I say, my brother might be even better than me. I don't know, but at this point, I know what I know of him. He's very good. And other firearm instructors as well. But like I say, there are a lot of new firearm instructors that are training people. Then I'm like, I don't know about that one. But anyway.
It's about reputation. Like, you got to find someone with a good reputation out there, because you guys don't have like a rating system, do you?
No, we don't. We don't have a rating system. I know one of the ladies that's a firearm instructor. She's actually over My Sister Keepers. And she put out a directory of firearms instructors that she feel that are very good. Is on my page, on my Instagram page. If you go to the iTree link, and it talks about firearm instructors throughout the United States that she feel that are very good at what they do. And she only vets and look after the best that she could find, because she don't want to put her name on the line as well, So, but I just tell ladies, stay safe, at all costs. Either you have a firearm or you don't have a firearm. Always, like scriptures always say, you always have a way of escape. Find a way of escape. Because I know before stand your ground law came in, that was the first thing that you had to do back in the 80s. You had to retreat first. Now, since stand your ground law came in effect, you don't have to retreat, but you have to have certain circumstances that allow you to use deadly force. And that's what a lot of us don't understand. We just want to quickly whip out the firearm and just start blasting. No, because you wind yourself up in a whole heap of trouble.
There's so many different instances. For instance, somebody threatens you and they're standing at one end of the football field and you're at the other end, and they're making these threats to you. I mean, you might ask the question, do you have a right to shoot them because they just threatened to harm you or take your life?
Right.
Well, there's a question about whether or not that risk or threat of harm is imminent if they're at one end of the football field.
No. Where's the threat? That person cannot get to you. Even I tell people, like, there are incidents where people sitting in their cars and people are banging on their window. I say, there's no threat. Yeah, but they're banging on the window. I say, yeah, but there's a barrier between you and that person. Now, once that person breaks the barrier, then you have the right to defend yourself. Or if they open the door, there was one video where this guy with his kids, and a mob came around him because some lady said he stole her car. And as long as they was banging on the car, he was trying to drive slow to get through them, and nothing happened, But at that moment, when they opened the door on his daughter's side, that was a threat. That was the time you had the right to defend yourself.
And that's the thing. You got to know when and when not to.
And you got to think about it. A lot of times, by you don't learn laws, by you not studying different things. That's why I look at a lot of YouTube shootings and different things, so I can learn if I'm ever in a situation, because when that moment happens, it happens so quick, and sometimes you don't have time to think, like I said, you are the first responder. And as a first responder, first I have to keep myself safe.
Yeah, first.
And then in order to save everybody else. So, but you have to, just because a person is threatening, as long as they don't enter that space where it can be assault or battery, depending on what it is, and then you got to look at the old rule, who brings a knife to a gunfight? If this person got a knife, I've had trainers to tell me, if a person got a gun, you run towards them. If they got a knife, you run away from them, because there's that 721-foot rule. A person with a knife can do more damage to you than a person with a gun. Yes, yes. And
Wait, Dolly, I might be just a little bit, say that just one more time. I know we're at the top of the hour, and I'm say that one more time, please.
Well, there's the 21-foot rule of a person. I'm going to put it up. I have a video, I researched it and got a video of this guy that took out almost 20 police officers with a butcher knife. And because his proximity, by the time they was able to draw their weapons, he might have been 21 feet away from them, but by the time he got to them, they were barely pulling it out of their holster, and he was slicing and stabbing and running to the next person and just running around in circles. And then they were running and falling down, he jumping on top of them, stabbing them, and jumping up and running to the next person. Yes. So if you see somebody with a knife, run. Don't try to engage that person unless you have good distance, because even a guy my size, and I tell people, when they're loading their firearm, or when they're putting their firearm, the magazine inside to chamber around, you always keep your eye on the target, because if you're looking down and just that few seconds you're looking down, that target can be right up on
you. That's true.
That's true. So you have to always be aware of your surroundings. And that's the biggest key. Women have to be aware. I know when my wife and my daughters would go out for Christmas, do their little shopping, that was a big highlight way back in the day. I would go with them and I would fall asleep in the car, and I would tell them, when you get to the store, call me, because I'm watching them going in. Before you come out, call me and I will meet you, and escort you back to the car. Because a lot of times they have packages, everything is obstructing their eyesight, and they know where they're going, but boom, they can become victims. And now we're approaching that season where people are doing their shopping. Most people doing it online because of the pandemic, but however, there will be some people out in stores. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Park in a well-lit parking lot. You know what I mean? Women, that's the whole thing with women. They have to stay safe. They have to be aware of their surroundings. Get those senses heightened up. If you're going out, even just in regular, don't get your head down in your purse or on the phone all the time, because you can be a victim and not even realizing you're a victim until it's too late.
You are so right. Doc Holliday, thank you so much. This has been so valuable, this information you're sharing with the community. We thank you so much for just doing your community's duty to just educate all. We realize that this is your profession, but the fact that you just come out and share like this, we are grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that when you asked me to come on the show, that I was able to oblige, because I always try to get information out. It's not all about me. It's about the whole community as a whole.
And I can tell that about you. I definitely can. So Doc Holliday is on Instagram at Doc Holliday69, and that's Holliday with 2 L's. And some of these videos he's telling me about now, you'll find them right there, and you can check them out. And you can also call him and ask him questions at 954-892-3969. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy.
All righty. Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye. All righty. So that's Doc Holliday, and we appreciate you all. He's going to let himself out, and we will be back here next week. We have another special guest, so stay tuned. I will promo that on my social media on Facebook which is facebook.com//Lisa Crawford Biz. And don't forget to check Nathaniel Crawford and myself out on Instagram on Thursdays at 7 for Real Talk. We've been absent for a couple weeks, getting through the elections and that thing, but stay tuned. We'll be back on Instagram on Thursday night. I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. I'm Lisa K. Crawford, attorney and realtor. If you need to reach me about a legal matter or real estate, feel free to give me a call. My phone number is 954-864-8950. Everybody have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family. Be safe, socially distant, stay socially distant from each other and all that good stuff, but definitely enjoy the holidays. Signing out for now. Good night, everyone.